millionaire in a coma for 1 year, and when he wakes up, his wife is dating another man. Richard Mitchell had always been a man accustomed to controlling everything around him. At 58, he had built an empire in the transportation industry in New York City, but he never imagined he would one day wake up to discover his life had crumbled while he slept. When he opened his eyes in that hospital bed, the first thing he saw was his wife Jennifer embracing another man. The scene he witnessed in that moment would change everything forever. "Jennifer?" His voice came out hoarse, barely a whisper after a year of silence. The 35-year-old woman turned, startled, immediately pulling away from the stranger's arms. Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of joy. "Richard, you're awake," she stammered, pressing a hand to her chest. The man beside her took a step back, clearly uncomfortable. Richard noticed he was wearing a white coat. "A doctor. Dr. Williams, could you—" Jennifer began but was interrupted. "Of course, I'll give you some privacy," the doctor replied before quickly leaving the room. Richard tried to sit up, but his body was still weak. He studied his wife carefully. There was something different about her, beyond the obvious awkwardness of the situation. "How long was I—" he started to ask. "A year," Jennifer whispered. "A year and 3 months. And you and that doctor?" Jennifer looked away, unable to meet her husband's gaze. Just then, a nurse entered the room carrying medical equipment. "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell. What a joy to see you awake," the young woman said with a genuine smile. "I'm Ashley. I've been taking care of you all this time." Richard observed her closely. She was a woman around 25, with brown hair tied in a ponytail, and there was something familiar about her features he couldn't quite place. "Ashley has been an angel," Jennifer said, seeming relieved to have someone ease the tension. "She never left your side." The nurse checked the monitors and made some notes. Richard noticed how she looked at him with a warmth that went beyond professionalism. "I need to inform Dr. Williams that you're awake," Ashley said. "He'll want to run some tests." "Dr. Williams, is he in charge of my case?" Richard asked, watching his wife's reaction. "Yes," Jennifer answered quickly. "He's the one who saved your life." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. When they were alone again, silence hung in the air like a storm cloud. Richard knew he needed answers, but he also knew his wife was hurting. "Jen, tell me what happened," he said softly, reaching for her hand. Jennifer hesitated before stepping closer and taking it. Richard could feel her trembling. "You had an accident at the office, a fall down the stairs. You hit your head and—" She paused to take a deep breath. "The doctors said you might never wake up. And the company. I tried, Richard. I swear I tried to keep everything running, but—" Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't understand the business. I lost important contracts. Employees left." Richard squeezed her hand tighter. "How much did we lose?" "More than half," she whispered. "But I managed to save the jobs of the longest-serving employees. I used almost everything left to pay their overdue wages." Richard stayed silent for a moment, processing the information. His wife had sacrificed their fortune to protect the people who worked for them. That said a lot about her character. "And Dr. Williams? How did he come into your life?" Jennifer let go of his hand and walked away, moving toward the window. "At first, he was just the doctor in charge of your case. But I spent entire days here at the hospital. Weeks, months. He gave me strength when I couldn't go on anymore." "Strength?" "Richard, there were moments when I thought I'd lose my mind. Seeing you there, unresponsive, not knowing if you'd ever come back." She turned to face him. "I felt so alone." Richard studied his wife carefully. There was genuine pain in her eyes, but also guilt. So much guilt. "Did you fall in love with him?" The question hung in the air. Jennifer took a few seconds to answer. I don't know, maybe. He was there when I needed someone the most. And I wasn't." Richard finished, no bitterness in his voice. Not by your fault. Ashley returned to the room with Dr. Williams. Richard took a better look at the man now. He was tall, with greying hair at his temples, probably in his 40s. Handsome, Richard admitted to himself. "Mr. Richard, it's a miracle to see you awake," the doctor said, keeping a respectful distance from the bed. "I'll need to run some tests to assess your neurological functions. Doctor, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What were my real chances of waking up?" The doctor exchanged a glance with Jennifer before answering. "To be honest, after the first 6 months, the odds were very slim, less than 5%. Richard nodded slowly. He couldn't blame his wife for losing hope. During the tests, Richard had time to observe the interactions between Jennifer and Dr. Williams. There was familiarity there, but also a new tension. His presence had changed everything. "Your reflexes are good," the doctor said after the examination. "We'll do a CT scan to check for any lasting effects, but from what I can see, your recovery is exceptional." "Dr. Williams," Richard called, "thank you for saving my life, and for taking care of my wife when I couldn't." The doctor clearly grew uneasy at the remark. "I just did my professional duty. I'm sure it was more than that." Richard smiled, but there was something in his eyes the doctor couldn't decipher. After the doctor left, Ashley stayed to adjust some equipment. "Nurse Ashley," Richard said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, Mr. Richard. Do you have family here in New York City?" "Yes, I do. My mother lives in Williamsburg." "And your father?" Ashley hesitated for a moment. "My father, he was never part of my life. My mother raised me alone." Richard studied the young woman's face. There was something familiar about it that unsettled him, like a memory he couldn't quite grasp. "How old are you?" 24. Richard did a quick mental calculation. 25 years ago, he was just starting to build his company. It had been a turbulent time in his life, full of travel and other complications. "Your last name is..." "Mitchell," Ashley replied, watching his reaction closely. Richard's heart skipped a beat. Mitchell was a common last name, but combined with her age and the familiar features, "Your mother's, what's her name?" "Susan. Susan Williams." Richard remembered immediately. Susan had been an employee at the company in its early years, a beautiful, intelligent woman he'd had a brief relationship with before meeting Jennifer. She had left the company suddenly, saying she was moving to another state. "Ashley," Richard began, but was interrupted by Jennifer's return. "Dr. Williams said you could be discharged in a few days," Jennifer announced, clearly relieved to have something neutral to talk about. "That's good," Richard replied, but his eyes remained fixed on Ashley. The nurse finished her tasks and said goodbye. When she left, Richard turned to Jennifer. "Jen, I need to tell you something, but first, I want you to be completely honest with me about Dr. Williams." Jennifer sat in the chair beside the bed, taking a deep breath. "All right. What do you want to know?" You're in a relationship with him." "We are," she admitted after a pause. "But Richard, I swear it wasn't something that happened overnight. It was months of loneliness, of desperation. Do you love him?" She hesitated. "I don't even know what I feel for anyone anymore. These past few months have been a whirlwind of emotions." "And him? Does he love you?" "He says he does." Richard noticed the hesitation in her voice. "But you have doubts?" "Sometimes I get the feeling he got close to me because he knew about our financial situation. Before the accident, you were a very wealthy man. And now I'm not." "No. And ever since he found out, he's been different." Richard nodded. His experience in business had taught him to recognize opportunistic people. "Jen, there's something I need to tell you. About the nurse, Ashley." "What about her?" Actually, I'm almost certain she's my daughter." Jennifer looked at him in shock. "Your daughter? What do you mean?" Richard told her about Susan, about the relationship they'd had years ago, about how she'd abruptly left the company. "Are you sure?" "The age matches, the last name, and there's something in her features that reminds me of Susan, and the way she looks at me, Jen. It's not just professional kindness. My God, Richard, what now? Now I need to talk to her, and you need to decide what you want to do about Dr. Williams. I don't know what I want, Jennifer admitted. This past year I convinced myself you'd never come back. I tried to rebuild my life, but part of me always knew I was betraying our story. You didn't betray me, Jen. You did what anyone would do in your situation, but now you're back and I don't know how to handle it. That night, Richard lay awake, thinking about everything he'd discovered. His life had completely changed in a single day. He'd lost his fortune, but perhaps he'd gained a daughter. His wife was with another man, but there was still love between them. And that other man might not be who he seemed. The next morning, Ashley arrived for her shift earlier than usual. Richard was waiting for her. "Ashley, can we talk?" "Of course, Mr. Richard." "Sit here beside me," he said, gesturing to the chair. She sat, but Richard noticed she was nervous. "Ashley, I knew your mother." The young woman's eyes immediately filled with tears. "I know," she whispered. "You know. My mother told me when I turned 18. She said you never knew about me, that she decided not to tell you because you were building your life with someone else." Richard felt a mix of emotions: anger at Susan for never giving him the chance to know his daughter, sadness for the lost years, and overwhelming tenderness for this young woman who'd cared for him without him knowing who she was. "Why did you come work here? Why did you take care of me? When I heard about your accident, I needed to be close. I couldn't leave you alone." She paused, wiping her tears. "I always wanted to meet my father, but I never had the courage to look for you. And now I don't know if you'll want a daughter you never knew existed." Richard reached out and touched Ashley's face. "Sweetheart, I've missed 24 years of your life. I don't want to lose another day." Ashley began to cry and threw herself into Richard's arms. It was the first time they'd hugged as father and daughter. "I took care of you all this time," she said between sobs. "Even when the other doctors said it was pointless, I kept talking to you, telling you about my life, about Mom. Do you think I heard you? Sometimes I hoped you did. Maybe I heard you. Maybe it was your voice that brought me back." Jennifer arrived at that moment and found the two of them embracing. At first she was confused, but when she saw the tears of joy on both their faces, she realized Richard had confirmed her suspicions. "Ashley is your daughter," Jennifer said, not as a question, but as a statement. "Yes," Richard replied, still holding the young woman. "Jennifer, I want you to meet Ashley. Ashley, this is Jennifer, my wife." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. See, the situation was awkward, but Jennifer stepped forward and extended her hand to Ashley. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Ashley. Thank you for taking care of my husband." "Thank you for accepting me," Ashley replied, still emotional. In the days that followed, the dynamic at the hospital changed completely. Richard recovered quickly, spending hours talking with Ashley about the lost years. She told him about her childhood, about how Susan had worked hard to raise a daughter alone, and about her nursing studies. "Mom always said I had a knack for caring for people," Ashley shared. "I think it was my way of connecting with you, even without knowing you." "And she never remarried?" "No. She said you were the love of her life, but that you weren't meant to stay together." Richard felt a mix of remorse and gratitude. Susan had given up her own happiness to avoid complicating his life. Meanwhile, the relationship between Jennifer and Dr. Williams grew increasingly tense. Richard watched from afar, noticing how the doctor had become cold and distant since learning he had woken up. "Jennifer," Richard said one afternoon, "have you noticed how Dr. Williams has changed?" "I have," she admitted. "He's been acting strange, talking about changes in the medical staff, about the need for you to be discharged soon. He wants to get rid of me. Maybe he just wants to avoid awkwardness. Or maybe he's realized there isn't much money left to interest him." Jennifer fell silent, but Richard could tell he'd hit the mark. "Jen, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "I want you to test him. Tell him you discovered an overseas bank account I had. Make something up. Say we still have plenty of money. Richard, that's not right. I need to know his true intentions toward you. If he really loves you, my financial situation shouldn't matter. Reluctantly, Jennifer agreed. The next day, she went to Dr. Williams's office. Jennifer, how is Richard? He asked, but without the warmth he'd shown before. He's doing well, recovering. Actually, I came here because I found out something important. What is it? Richard had a bank account in Switzerland I didn't know about. The company's accountant called me yesterday. Apparently, we still have a significant amount saved there. Dr. Williams's eyes lit up in a way Jennifer had never seen before. Really? How much? A few $1,000,000. That's wonderful, Jennifer. He moved closer to her with renewed interest. This changes everything. You can rebuild the company, live comfortably again. We? I mean, you and Richard, of course. But Jennifer had caught his slip, and the gleam in his eyes at the mention of money. Michael, she called him by his first name. I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Of course, if I had no money, if I were just an ordinary woman with nothing, would you still be interested in me? Dr. Williams hesitated for a few seconds, and that hesitation was answer enough. Jennifer, what kind of question is that? Of course I would, but the lack of conviction in his voice made her realize Richard had been right. She had only been an opportunity for him. I need to go, she said, quickly leaving the office. When she returned to Richard's room, she was visibly shaken. So, Richard asked, you were right. When I mentioned the money, he completely changed, and when I asked if he would still love me if I were poor. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Richard held her hand. I'm sorry, Jen. I'm the one who should apologize. I was a fool. I let loneliness and vulnerability cloud my judgment. You weren't foolish. You were human. Ashley walked into the room just then and sensed the tension. Sorry, I can come back later. No, Ashley, you're part of this family now, Richard said. Jen, tell her what we found out about Dr. Williams. Jennifer recounted the situation, and Ashley listened quietly. I never liked him, Ashley admitted when Jennifer finished. I always thought he was too opportunistic. Co-workers have mentioned he has a history of getting involved with wealthy patients. What do you mean? Jennifer asked. 2 years ago, he got involved with the wife of a businessman who was hospitalized here. The man was in a coma for 3 months, and when he woke up, he found out his wife was pregnant with Dr. Williams' child. And what happened? The businessman forgave his wife but cut the doctor out of their lives. Dr. Williams kept his job because the hospital couldn't prove professional misconduct, but everyone knows the kind of person he is. Richard and Jennifer exchanged knowing glances. Jennifer, Richard said, you need to end things with him before this goes any further. I know. I just don't know how. Do you want me there? Would that help? I think so. Men like him need to understand you're not alone. The next day, when Dr. Williams made his routine visit, Richard was awake and alert. Dr. Williams, my wife would like to speak with you. Of course. What is it, Jennifer? Michael, I need to be honest with you. There's no Swiss bank account. The doctor's expression changed instantly. What do you mean? I made it up to test you, and your reaction showed me exactly who you are. Jennifer, you're jumping to conclusions. I'm not, she interrupted. I let loneliness and gratitude for saving my husband cloud my judgment. But that wasn't love. And what you felt for me wasn't either. This is ridiculous. I love you. You love the idea of a comfortable life I could provide. But it's over, Michael. I choose my husband. Dr. Williams looked from Jennifer to Richard, clearly angry. You'll regret this decision. When he tires of playing happy family, you'll see who was really on your side. Dr. Williams, Richard interjected calmly, I'm grateful you saved my life, but now I'd like you to leave our room and not return. I'm the attending physician, and I'll request a transfer to another doctor. After the doctor left, visibly upset, Richard hugged Jennifer. Are you sure about it? He asked. I am. This past year I thought I'd lost you forever. Now that you're back, I don't want to waste this second chance. even knowing we've lost almost everything? Richard, these months running the company taught me money isn't everything. The employees who stayed were the ones who truly cared about us. The clients who remained valued our work, not just our low prices. Do you think we can rebuild? I'm sure of it, but this time we'll do it differently. We'll build a company based on values, not just profit. Ashley, who had been listening from the hallway, entered the room smiling. Can I make a suggestion? Of course, sweetheart, said Richard, still getting used to using that word. What if you turned the company into something that helps families like ours? Families who've been through hardships and need a second chance. How so? Asked Jennifer. You could create a reintegration program for people who lost their jobs during crises, or for recovering addicts, or for those who cared for sick relatives and fell out of the job market. Richard looked at his daughter with admiration. Ashley, you're brilliant. That's exactly the kind of purpose our company needs. And it would be a way to give back everything we learned during this difficult time, added Jennifer. In the following weeks, as Richard finished his recovery at home, the three worked together planning the company's new chapter. Ashley had requested part-time hours at the hospital to free up time for rebuilding the family business. You know what amazes me most? Richard said one afternoon as they reviewed plans. What? Jennifer and Ashley asked in unison. How well you two got along from the start. I was afraid there might be jealousy or discomfort. Richard, said Jennifer, Ashley saved your life. How could I resent someone who gave me back my husband? And Jennifer took care of you and the employees when no one else could, Ashley added. She proved her love is real. During this time, Richard also had long conversations with Susan, Ashley's mother. She visited often, and gradually, he understood her past decisions better. Susan, why did you never tell me about Ashley? Richard, you were building a life with Jennifer. You were engaged, planning a future. I couldn't just destroy that. But you took away my chance to know my daughter. I regret that every day. But at the time, it seemed right. And now? Can you forgive me for not being there? Richard, you couldn't be present for something you didn't know existed. I'm the one who needs your forgiveness for making that choice alone. They embraced, finally making peace with the past. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please like and subscribe. It helps us newcomers tremendously. Now, continuing. 3 months after Richard woke from the coma, the new company was operational. They'd rented a smaller but cozy office and started with a small team of loyal employees who stayed through the crisis. Our first contract, Jennifer announced, entering the office beaming. Tell us everything, Richard said. A tech company wants to implement a social inclusion program. They need help recruiting and training vulnerable candidates. Perfect, Ashley exclaimed. Exactly the project we wanted. There's more, Jennifer continued. The owner heard our story and was impressed. He said he wants to work with us precisely because we've rebuilt from hardship. Richard smiled, feeling a satisfaction he hadn't known in years. You know, losing nearly everything might have been the best thing that ever happened to me. How so? Ashley asked. When I had money, I only cared about making more. Now I have you both, a purpose and a chance to change lives. Dad, Ashley said, using the word for the first time. Do you think that's why you woke up? To learn these lessons. Richard hugged her, moved by being called father. Maybe so, sweetheart. Perhaps that was exactly why. 6 months later, the company had grown significantly. They had helped over 100 people find new jobs and rebuild their lives. Richard, Jennifer, and Ashley worked together every day, and the harmony between them was evident to everyone who knew them. We have a surprise for you, Jennifer said one Friday afternoon. What surprise? Close your eyes, Ashley requested. Richard obeyed, curious. He heard movement around him, whispers, and then an invitation to open his eyes. When he did, he saw the entire company team gathered, along with some people he didn't immediately recognize. Richard, said an older man, I'm Robert. You helped me find work 3 months ago after I was laid off at 55. And I'm Sarah, a woman added. You gave me a chance when I was recovering from addiction treatment. And I'm Tyler, a young man chimed in. You hired me when I had no experience at all. Richard looked around, seeing dozens of smiling faces of people whose lives had been touched by their work. "What is this?" he asked, clearly moved. "It's a thank you party," Jennifer explained. "All these people wanted to come here to thank you for changing their lives. But more than that," Ashley added, "they wanted to show that what we do here truly matters." Richard couldn't hold back his tears. In all his previous years in business, he had never felt such deep satisfaction. "Thank you," was all he could say. The party lasted well into the night, filled with shared stories, laughter, and emotion. Richard realized he had found something far more valuable than all the money he'd lost: a purpose. When everyone had left, Richard, Jennifer, and Ashley remained alone in the office. "You know what makes me happiest?" Richard said. "What?" the two asked. "That we built this together, the three of us, like a real family." "Speaking of family," Jennifer said hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you." Richard and Ashley looked at her intently. "What is it, Jen?" I went to the doctor last week. I was feeling strange, nauseous." "Are you sick?" Ashley asked, worried. "No," Jennifer smiled. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was broken by Ashley's joyful scream. "Pregnant? Really?" Richard could hardly believe it. "How far along?" 2 months. The baby was conceived just before your accident, Richard, during those last days before your coma." Richard stepped closer and hugged Jennifer tightly. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I found out while you were in the coma, and then with everything Dr. Williams said, I didn't know how to handle it. I was afraid you'd think the baby wasn't yours." "Jen, I'd never think that. And now, with everything falling into place between us, I finally felt ready to share the news." Ashley joined the embrace. "I'm going to have a little brother." "Or sister," Jennifer corrected, laughing. "Doesn't matter," Ashley said. "I'll be the best big sister in the world." Richard looked at the two women he loved and felt his life was finally complete. He had lost a fortune, but gained a true family and a purpose far beyond money. 9 months later, in the same hospital where Richard had spent a year in a coma, Susan Richard Mitchell was born, a healthy baby girl who quickly became the center of the family's world. "She's beautiful," Ashley said, holding her niece for the first time. "She has her daddy's eyes," Jennifer noted. "And her mommy's nose," Richard added. Ashley had insisted on being present during the delivery, supporting every moment as both a nurse and an older sister. She was the one handling the medical aspects, freeing Richard to focus on providing emotional support to his wife. "You know what's most amazing?" Richard said, gazing at his newborn daughter. "What?" "If I hadn't gone into a coma, I might never have met Ashley, and maybe I'd never have learned to value what truly matters in life." "Do you think going through all that was worth it?" Jennifer asked. "Looking at the three of you now, I can say yes. Every difficult moment was worth it." Susan, Ashley's grandmother and mother, arrived at the hospital to meet the granddaughter, who carried her name. "She's perfect," Susan said, moved. "Just like the first Susan I ever met," Richard replied, referring to her. They had become close friends over the past months, building a relationship based on mutual respect and their shared love for Ashley. "Richard," Susan said, "thank you for forgiving my past choices. Susan, thank you for raising such a wonderful daughter. Even on your own, you did a perfect job." 2 years later, Mitchell and Associates had become a leader in New York City in the field of social reintegration and inclusive human resources. Richard had been invited to speak at universities about overcoming adversity and finding purpose in business. "Dad, are you nervous?" Ashley asked, adjusting Richard's tie before an important lecture. "A little. Speaking to 500 people isn't easy." "Remember what you always say, the best stories come from real struggles." Richard smiled. His daughter had not only become his right hand at the company, but also his personal advisor. "And how's little Susan?" "Sleeping. Jennifer is with her in the audience." "Perfect. Let's go then." The lecture was a success. Richard shared his story honestly, speaking about past mistakes, the accident, the pain of discovering his wife's betrayal, and how all of it had transformed into the greatest blessing of his life. "What I've learned," he told the attentive audience, "is that sometimes we need to lose everything to discover what's truly worth having." I used to think success was accumulating money. Now I know success is making a difference in people's lives. After the lecture, a young college student approached him. "Mr. Mitchell, your story really inspired me. I also want to work in social inclusion." "That's wonderful. What's your name?" "Madison. I'm finishing my psychology degree and was wondering if you have any internship openings." Richard smiled. "Madison, there's always room for people who want to make a difference. Look for Ashley on Monday. She'll guide you." "Is Ashley your daughter?" "Yes, and she's also our HR director. How lucky to have a close-knit family working together." "Not luck, Madison. It was built through lots of dialogue, forgiveness, and love." When they got home that night, Richard found Jennifer breastfeeding little Susan in the nursery. "How was the lecture?" she asked softly. "Great. I think we inspired a few people." "You always inspire people, Richard." "It's your gift. A gift I discovered late in life. Better late than never." Ashley appeared at the bedroom door. "Can I interrupt? I have news." "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" "Brandon proposed to me." Richard and Jennifer exchanged glances, surprised but happy. Brandon was a young man Ashley had met at the company, a former addict they'd helped reintegrate. He'd become the company's accountant and over time had won Ashley's heart. "And what did you say?" Jennifer asked. "Yes, of course." Ashley showed them the ring on her finger. Richard stood and hugged his daughter. "I'm so happy for you, Ashley. Brandon is a good man. He wants to talk to you tomorrow, Dad, to ask for your blessing officially. He already has my blessing, but it'll be a pleasure to talk to him. And the best part," Ashley continued, "is that we want to have the wedding here at home, just for family and close friends. Nothing too big." "It'll be perfect," said Jennifer. "Little Susan will get to be part of Auntie's celebration." That night, when everyone was already asleep, Richard stayed on the porch, gazing at the stars. Jennifer joined him. "What are you thinking about?" "How unpredictable life is. 3 years ago, I was a wealthy but empty businessman. Today I have much less money, but I'm infinitely happier." "Do you regret anything?" "I regret taking so long to discover what truly matters, but I don't regret the path we took to get here." "Not even the betrayal with Dr. Williams?" Richard thought for a moment. "Not even that. It made you realize our love was real, and it taught me that forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing to build something new from what was broken. And we built something beautiful. We did." 6 months later, on the day of Ashley's wedding, the Mitchell home was alive with celebration. Susan, the grandmother, had helped organize everything, and little Susan, now 2 years old, ran around the garden in her flower girl dress. "Brandon," Richard said, placing a hand on his son-in-law's shoulder, "take good care of my daughter." "I will, Mr. Mitchell. She saved my life just like all of you did. We just gave you an opportunity. You did the hard work." During the ceremony, Richard couldn't hold back tears as he watched Ashley walk toward the makeshift altar in the garden. This was the daughter he'd once lost the chance to raise, now fully part of his life. "You're crying, Daddy," whispered little Susan, sitting in his lap. "Tears of joy, my princess. Is Auntie Ashley pretty?" "She's beautiful." After the ceremony, during dinner, Brandon asked to speak. "I'd like to thank the Mitchell family for giving me a second chance at life. When I arrived here, I was a man destroyed by addiction. You didn't just give me a job, you gave me hope. And now you're part of the family," Richard said. "And speaking of family," Brandon continued, "Ashley and I have an announcement." Ashley stood up, smiling. "We're expecting a baby." The house erupted in cheers. Richard got up and hugged them both. "Congratulations, when's the baby due?" "In 7 months," Ashley replied. "Little Susan is going to have a cousin." "Or a little cousin," Jennifer corrected. "This family just keeps growing," Grandma Susan teased. That night, after all the guests had left, the family gathered in the living room to talk about the day. "It was perfect," Ashley said, still in her wedding dress. "You looked radiant, sweetheart," Richard said. "And now we'll have another grandbaby," Susan added. "Grandma Susan is going to be busy," Jennifer joked. "Good busy," the grandmother replied. After raising Ashley alone for so many years, now I get to enjoy my grandchildren. Little Susan climbed onto Richard's lap. Daddy, tell me a story. What story do you want to hear, Princess? The story of the daddy who slept for a long time. Richard smiled. His youngest daughter loved hearing the child-friendly version of how he'd been in a coma and woken up to a bigger family. Once upon a time, there was a daddy who had to sleep for a long time to learn a very important lesson. What lesson? The girl asked, though she already knew the answer. That the people we love are more important than anything else in the world. And did he learn it? He did. And when he woke up, he found he had a family even bigger and more beautiful than before. And they lived happily ever after. Richard looked around the room, seeing Jennifer with her hand on her belly already expecting another baby. Ashley radiant beside Brandon, Susan smiling proudly at her expanding family. Yes, my princess, they lived happily ever after. 5 years later, Mitchell & Associates had become one of the leading names in social responsibility in the country. Richard had written a book about his experience, which became a bestseller. Ashley had completed a postgraduate degree in people management and taken over as the company's executive director. Dad, we've received an interesting offer, said Ashley, stepping into Richard's office. What kind of offer? The state government wants to partner with us to create a statewide social reintegration program. Really? That's huge. Yes, it would be our chance to help thousands of people, not just hundreds. Richard grew thoughtful. What do you think? I think we should accept, but with one condition. What? That we don't lose our focus on personalized care. I don't want us to become just another big, impersonal corporation. I completely agree. How can we ensure that? By dividing the project into smaller units, each with the autonomy to maintain close relationships with the people we serve. Ashley, you're brilliant. Let's draft a counter-proposal on those terms. During this time, the family continued to grow. Brandon and Ashley had 2 children, Ethan and Olivia. Jennifer and Richard had another daughter, Charlotte. The house was always full of children, laughter and joy. Sometimes I wonder how we manage a growing business with so many kids at home, Jennifer said one night after putting everyone to bed. Simple, Richard replied. We don't run a business, we live our purpose, and our children are part of that. How so? They're growing up seeing that work can be fulfilling when you make a difference in people's lives. That's a lesson they'll carry forever. Do you think any of them will follow in our footsteps? I don't know, and it doesn't matter. What matters is that they'll grow up knowing they can choose meaningful careers. Susan, now nearly 70, remained active in the company, overseeing training and personal development. Grandma Susan never stops, Ashley remarked. She says working with you keeps her young, Brandon replied. And it's true, Richard added. She has more energy than most 40-year-olds. One Saturday afternoon, Richard was in the garden playing with his grandchildren when he received an unexpected call. Richard Mitchell? Yes, who's speaking? This is Dr. Williams. Richard fell silent for a few seconds, surprised. Dr. Williams? What can I do for you? I'd like to talk to you, in person, if possible. About what? About what happened years ago. I'd like to apologize. Richard considered the call. Part of him didn't want to revisit that time, but another part was curious. All right, we can meet on Monday at my office. Thank you, Richard. I know I don't deserve this chance. When Richard told Jennifer about the call, she was surprised. Do you think he's changed? I don't know, but everyone deserves a chance at redemption. Do you want me there? No. I think it's better if I talk to him alone first. On Monday, Dr. Williams arrived at the office promptly. Richard noticed he was thinner, with more grey hair, and a sadness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Richard, thank you for seeing me. Have a seat, Doctor. How can I help you? First, I want to apologize for what I did to your family. I took advantage of Jennifer's moment of vulnerability, and that was unforgivable. Richard studied him in silence, trying to gauge his sincerity. What made you change your mind about this? My own life fell apart. I lost my hospital job for misconduct. My wife left me when she discovered my affairs, and my children no longer speak to me. I'm sorry to hear that. Richard, you have every right to hate me, but I wanted you to know I've spent these last years reflecting on my choices, and I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For showing Jennifer who I really was. If you hadn't uncovered my true intentions, I might have caused even more harm. Richard was surprised by the man's honesty. Dr. Williams, we all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them. I have, but maybe it's too late to rebuild my life. It's never too late, at least not while we're alive. The doctor looked at him with hope. Do you really believe that? I do. I rebuilt my own life at 58. You can still rebuild yours. How? Start by asking forgiveness from those you hurt. Then find a way to help others instead of taking advantage of them. You forgive me? Richard thought for a moment. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because holding on to bitterness only hurts me. Dr. Williams began to cry. Thank you, Richard. You can't imagine how much this means to me. Dr. Williams, may I make a suggestion? Of course. There's a free medical care program for underprivileged families that needs volunteers. If you want a fresh start, it might be a good place to begin. Would you give me a reference? I would, but only if you prove you've truly changed. How can I prove it? Volunteer for 6 months, then we'll talk again. The doctor left the office with a hopeful expression Richard had never seen before. When he told Jennifer about the conversation, she was impressed. Do you think he's really changed? Maybe, but even if he hasn't, we gave him a chance to change, and that's what matters. You always see the good in people. Not always, but I've learned everyone deserves a second chance, even those who hurt us. 6 months later, Dr. Williams returned to Richard's office. This time, he was different. There was a lightness in his face that hadn't been there before. Richard, I came to thank you again. How was the volunteer work? Life-changing. For the first time in years, I felt truly useful. I helped people who really needed it, expecting nothing in return. And your children? I'm still working on that relationship. But my ex-wife said she's noticed changes in me. It's a start. I'm happy for you, Doctor. Michael, you can call me Michael. Michael, do you want to continue volunteering? I do. Actually, I came here with a proposal. What proposal? I'd like to create a medical care program within your company for your employees and the families you serve. Richard was intrigued. How would that work? Free medical care, focusing on prevention and basic care. I'd work without pay the first year just to prove my dedication. Michael, that's an excellent idea. But are you sure? I am. It's my way of making up for the harm I've caused. Richard discussed the proposal with Ashley and Jennifer, and they all agreed it would be a valuable addition to the company's services. But let's start with a 6-month trial contract, Ashley said during the meeting with Michael. Perfect. You won't regret it. A year later, the medical program had become one of the company's most sought-after services. Michael had shown total dedication, addressing not just health issues, but also offering emotional support to those reintegrating into society. You know what's most amazing? Richard said to Jennifer one evening. What? How Michael has transformed. He really changed. Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they can start climbing back up. And sometimes they need someone who believes in their ability to change. During this time, the company had grown so much that Richard decided it was time to step back from daily operations. Ashley, he said one morning, I think it's time for you to officially take over as president of the company. Dad, are you sure? You're still too young to retire. I'm not retiring. I'm just shifting my focus. I want to dedicate myself more to education, giving talks, writing, teaching other companies how to implement social programs. And I'd take over everything? You and Brandon, you make a great team, and you've already proven you can manage operations better than I can. That's both terrifying and exciting at the same time. That's how it should be. When we're not a little scared, it means we're not growing. The transition ceremony took place at an event for all employees and company partners. Richard gave an emotional speech. When I woke up from my coma 8 years ago, I never imagined I'd get this far. This company was born from pain, grew with love, and now it's transforming to keep helping people for generations to come. Ashley isn't just my daughter. She's the most capable person I know to lead this company forward, and Brandon is the perfect partner to support her on this journey. I'm not leaving. I'm evolving. And you'll evolve too, because that's the nature of things that truly matter. They never stop growing. After the event, the family gathered at home for an intimate celebration. A toast, Richard said, raising his glass. To new beginnings born from unexpected endings. To love that overcomes all obstacles, Jennifer added. To the family you choose, not just the one you're born into, Ashley said. And to second chances, which we all deserve, Brandon finished. Susan, now 75 but still sharp and active, raised her glass. And to the children who will grow up knowing the world can be a better place when we work together for it. They toasted, and Richard looked around the table, seeing 4 generations of the family gathered. The children ran through the garden, the future was secure, and the past had been forgiven and turned into wisdom. 10 years after the day he woke from his coma, Richard sat on the same porch where he used to reflect on life. Now, at 68, his hair was completely white. His face bore a few more wrinkles, but he carried a serenity that only comes to those who've found their place in the world. "What are you thinking about, Grandpa?" asked Susan, his eldest daughter, now 12. "I'm thinking about how generous life is with us." "How so?" "Sometimes it takes away things we think are important to give us what truly matters." "Like what?" "Like me losing money to gain a real family." "Didn't you have a family before?" Richard smiled at his daughter's innocent question. "I had your mother, whom I loved very much, but I didn't know how to be a real father. I didn't know how to be a real husband. I only knew how to make money." "And how did you learn?" "I learned by losing everything and having to start over. I learned that people matter more than things, and I learned that helping others is the best way to be happy." "And are you happy, Grandpa?" Richard looked at the house full of children's laughter, heard Jennifer singing in the kitchen, saw Ashley arriving from work with Brandon and their kids. "I'm very happy, my princess. Very happy." That night, as he had every night for the past 10 years, Richard silently gave thanks for waking up from that coma. Not just because he regained consciousness, but because he woke up to a life worth living. And when he closed his eyes to sleep, surrounded by the love of his family, Richard knew he had found something far more valuable than all the money in the world. He had found the true meaning of life. The end of the story. And what did you think of this story of new beginnings and forgiveness? Were you moved by the journey of Richard, Jennifer, and Ashley? Tell us in the comments which part touched your heart the most, and whether you believe it's possible to rebuild a life after losing everything. Your opinion means so much to us.